Hi, I'm Jenny,
And I'm Rob.
and today we're talking about round 4 of our Tropical Readathon.
It's our second month-long round, and it's going to begin March 1st.
In your own time zone.
In your own time zone. It's going to run for the whole month of March, and we have 5 teams to choose from.
Okay, so there's Team Romance,
Team Sci-Fi Fantasy,
Team Mystery Horror Thriller,
Team Contemporary Literary Historical Fiction,
and Team Nonfiction Poetry.
How you choose your team is up to you. Most people like to choose a team based on the genre they like to read the most. There's going to be 13 common challenges.
And 2 team challenges. And so what team you choose doesn't really affect your TBR much, except for those 2 team challenges.
Yep. And then in addition to those challenges, we'll also have team books that you can read.
Yeah, and you can read any team book. So again, that won't affect your TBR.
Yeah, the TBR was really just about the team challenges.
Okay, so first let's talk about our common challenges. So again, there are 13, and the way this works is that there's a trope that the challenge is based off of and an alternate prompt. So you can either read a book that has that trope or read a book that satisfies the alternate prompt. You can try and do both if you want to extra challenge yourself, but it's not like you're going to get any extra points.
Yeah, you're not allowed to double up on points. There's just 1 book per challenge and 1 challenge per book.
Yeah. Okay, so our first common challenge is the absent dead parents trope. So this is to read a book where the main character's parents are either absent throughout the book or are dead prior to the book.
And then alternatively, you could read a book that has more than 1 parent, so i.e. a book that has multiple authors.
The next challenge is the war setting trope. So read a book that centers around some war. It can be a real war or it can be some fictional war like in a fantasy book.
Alternatively, you can read a book that you could use as a weapon, and we just mean a book that's 500 pages or more.
The next challenge is the small town trope. So this is to read a book that's in a small town.
Alternatively, you can read a book with a small 1-word title.
The next challenge is the coming of age trope. So read a book where the main character goes through some process of self-discovery.
Alternatively, you can read or reread a book that shaped you as a person or as a reader.
The next challenge is the dystopia trope. So read a book that takes place in a dystopia.
Alternatively, you read a book that someone else has chosen for you.
The next challenge is the blast from the past trope. So this is to read a book where the main character encounters someone from their past.
The alternate prompt here is to read a book written before the year 2000.
The next challenge is the mixed media trope, which is to read a book that includes things like letters, texts, emails, etc.
Alternatively, you can listen to an audiobook.
The next challenge is the artificial intelligence trope, so read a book that features an AI.
Alternatively, you can read an ebook.
The next challenge is the boarding school trope, so read a book that takes place in a boarding school.
Or you can have a buddy read with a friend or enemy or someone you don't have any feelings for.
The next challenge is the enemies to lovers or the enemies to friends book trope challenge. So read a book that involves enemies to lovers or enemies to friends.
Alternatively, you can read a book that you have DNF'd, so either a book that you chose to stop reading or a book that you never really chose to stop reading but you maybe haven't read in a long time.
The next challenge is the multiple POVs trope, so this is to read a book that's told through multiple points of view.
Alternatively, you can read a book with multiple POC characters, so multiple people of color.
The next challenge is the new kid in town trope challenge. So read a book where the MC, the main character, has just moved to a new town.
Alternatively, you could read a genre that you don't usually read.
And then the last common challenge is the retelling trope challenge. So read a book that's a retelling.
So alternatively, here you can read a book that has been adapted to a TV show or a film.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about our team challenges and our team books.
Yeah.
So again, each team has 2 team challenges specific to that team. And they also have 2 team books, but again, you can read any team's books for the extra points. It's just that you can only get kind of credit for 1 book, so you can't read both books and try and get points for both of those books unless you use the second book for another challenge.
Yeah, so the idea here for the team books is that for each team, we want to kind of pick a book, but what we've done is we picked a new release. So a lot of them are coming out February 2nd, and one of them is coming out March 2nd. But we also then for each team pick an older book. So in case that you want to take a book out from the library or borrow it, find it used, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so our team books and challenges. So first, let's start with Team Romance. So the team challenges for Team Romance are to read a book with the celebrity romance trope.
Or to read a book with the paranormal romance trope.
And then our team books The new one, the new release, is Accidentally Engaged by Farah Heron.
And the old release is Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali.
Okay, Team Science Fiction Fantasy. The team challenges are to read a book with a secret world trope, so read a book where there's some kind of secret world that's alongside or inside ours.
And the second one is to read a book that is a first contact with aliens book.
Yeah. And our team books, the new release is Rosewater. Nope, the new release is The Golden Flame by Emily Victoria.
And the old release is Rosewater by Tade Thompson.
Okay, next team. Team Contemporary Literary Historical Fiction. So the team challenges are to read a book with bookish themes, like maybe the main character is a writer or an librarian or something like that.
The second challenge is to read a book featuring a historical figure. So it doesn't have to be a main character, it could be like a side character, but just some historical figure actually in the novel.
And then our team books for that, the new release is Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Crystal Maldonado.
And our old release is The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini.
Okay, next team, Team Mystery Horror Thriller. The team challenges are to read a book with the haunted house trope.
And the second challenge is to read a book with the whodunit trope.
And the team books, the new release is The Obsession by Jesse Q. Sutanto.
And the old release is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones.
Okay, and then our last team, Team Nonfiction Poetry. The team challenges are to read a book on anti-racism.
And the second challenge is to read a travel memoir.
And the team books, the new release is Muted by Tammy Charles.
And the old release is Americanized, Rebel Without a Green Card by Sarah Saidi.
Okay, so for all of these books, I guess we'll talk about BTW. So for all these books, our plan is to read the old team books and to update our website. So for those of you who don't know, we run a website called booktriggerwarnings.com, and it's a wiki dedicated to providing things like trigger and content warnings, tropes, and rep information for any book. So there are over 3,000 pages on there. So for any of these books, you can go look it up, see if it's on there if you want to look at their warnings beforehand. And it's also a good way to find books of certain tropes. So you can go and find books with what tropes do we have? With like enemies to lovers. You can click on that page and see what kind of books there are there.
And it's also a wiki, and so if there's some trope that you think is missing, some trigger warning you think is missing, or even a book that's missing, you can join us on there and add content yourself. We're going to have videos up on that website as well to help figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the point system.
Point system.
Okay, point system. You want to talk about it?
Yes, there are 4 ways to get points. So first way is you get a point for every page that you read. And then the common challenges, for every common challenge that you finish, you get 50 points for that. Each team challenge, because it's a bit more specific, is 100 points. And the team books are even more specific, and so they're each worth 150 points.
Oh, okay, so once again, you can't double up on anything, so you can't do multiple books for the same challenge to get more points, and you can't count one book for multiple challenges. And then you can only get the 150 points per team book once per team. So you can't read both team books and try and get 300 points from that. You can.
Right. So what you can do though is you can read one of the team books for the 150 points, and maybe one of the other team books for one of the common challenges or team challenges, and that'll give you some points as well.
Yeah. Okay, so for books that count, graphic novels can be counted for pages read. Anything you read can be counted for pages read. But in order to count something for a challenge, it has to be at least a novella, which we looked it up, is defined
by the Hugo Awards or something.
Yeah,
at least 17,500 words, but just try to use your judgment.
Yeah, use your best judgment for that. And then for audiobooks, you can do that. Just make sure that you use Goodreads to try and calculate how many pages you read with that. We have some giveaways throughout the readathon. So there's 2 giveaways, but 3 total winners. The giveaway is through Book Depository, so it's international as long as Book Depository ships to you, and it's for a book of your choice up to $30. So the first giveaway is called the TBR giveaway, and it's just to share your TBR. It can be your full or your partial TBR, because you can change it at any point during the readathon. It just give us an idea of what you think you're going to read, and share that by March 7th at 11:59 p.m. We're in Chicago, so U.S. Central Time. And as long as you share it with us and tag us in it, or either DM us the link if you're not sharing it on like something that we're on.
Yeah, and make sure to
counted,
make sure to include your username as well when you do that, so that we know
who you are.
Yeah. All right. The second giveaway is so it's anyone who accumulates at least 500 points over the month is entered into this giveaway, and then we just pick one winner out of kind of randomly out of everyone who participates, and then one winner specifically from the winning team.
Okay, so to register, we'll have a link to our registration form in the description of this video. It's also on the written announcement post. And all it's going to ask, it's a Google form, it's just going to ask you for a unique username. So come up with something that you don't think anybody else is going to come up with. So maybe don't make your username like John.
No, if only one person does that, it's fine.
Yeah. So a unique username, and you're going to use this throughout the readathon to update your points. So make sure you don't forget it. And it's going to ask you how to contact you, how we can contact you. And that's in case we have questions during the readathon, like maybe Google submits the same thing 3 times and we want to make sure that that was an error and that you didn't actually read 112 pages 3 times during the day. And then if you win a giveaway, we need a way to contact you to let you know.
And then it'll also ask you for your team name.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick a team.
Yeah, and then again, registration will close the same time as the TBR giveaway, so March 7th at 11:59 p.m. U.S. Central.
And so you'll be able to find a bunch of links on the website as well. So there's links for registering. We have the links for updating your points. If you click there, and then you'll be brought to a calendar. And on that calendar, you can click on the date. And there it'll ask you for your username, how many pages you've read since the last update, what challenges, if any, that you've accomplished since the last update. And then you can also write down which books that you read for those challenges. Yeah,
that's mostly just for our curiosity. It's not going to affect anything. And then there's also a link for the leaderboard. So anytime throughout the readathon, you can click on the leaderboard, see which team's winning, see who the top contributor is, see how many points they've accumulated. Different teams are going to be different sizes, so this is all calculated with average points.
We have an FAQ featuring questions that we asked ourselves when we were creating it, and questions that people have asked us as well. We also have a page for kind of book recommendations. So some of these are books that we've read that we liked. Some of them are books we haven't read, but we've heard good things about. So if there's one of the challenges you're not sure what book you might read, you can go check out some recommendations there.
Yeah, and these are for the tropes, not for the alternate challenges. We can't tell you what book formed who you were as a reader, but we can tell you what books have a coming of age trope in them. And then there's also links for our Twitter and our Discord. So during the readathon, you can head over to Discord. There's going to be different rooms for each team, and you can chat with all the participants or chat with your team members.
Yeah, we also have different chat rooms for each of the team books. So, you know, if you're finished reading the book, you can pop in there, see if anyone's talking about it. And then we also have a link for the participant list. So this will list who's participating in each team. So, for instance, if you forget your username or you forget exactly how you spelled your username, you can check out there to find it.
Yeah, so last readathon, some people forgot their username, so it's just a good way to figure that out if you forget it. And to make sure, some people will submit something under like BookRob13, and then the next day submit it under @BookRob13, and the spreadsheet can't handle that. So just make sure you remember if you have an @ in your username or not.
Anything else?
Oh, we have a last announcement is that if you want to help us with sprints, so if you don't know what reading sprints are, it's just like someone hosts times to read together. They'll say like, let's read for the next 20 minutes, see how many books you can read. Books you can read, how many pages you can read. And then you all read together, for the next 20 minutes.
So those are called reading sprints. So we have a @TropicalSprints Twitter account.
Yeah, so if you want to help us out with that, we'll have a link down below again for a Google form for you to fill out, which will be information about what your time zone is and when you're available. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Yay. Thanks.
Bye.